And he said, go downstairs, go down the corridor, and on such and such a door, which is my office, go in there, sit down and read what is on the table. So she did that. She went in there and found a journal, handwritten by St. John, pages and pages and pages. She read this very carefully, and she got the idea of what this is all about. Namely, that this is your pouring out of your heart's desires and inspirations, and also the negatives are captured in this. St. John's diary has been translated into English and is available. It's called My Life in Christ. It's about this thick, quite a thick book. And if you read it, not only does he give indication of some of the holy and inspiring things that happened to him, but also of those terrible times that he had with despondency overtaking him and demonic temptations and horrible feelings and all these sorts of things, and how to cope with them. And therefore, the consequences of this is that Orthodox Christians, particularly in their earlier years, need to keep a spiritual diary. They need to have this spiritual journal. They need to have this to write in there all these things that are bound up with their faith or near to their faith. And the idea is that in 2 years' time you look back and you see what you were then and what are you now. Now, if you've been working upon yourself, you should see a significant change. You should see that there has been some spiritual enlightenment that's occurred in your life, in your heart, and that it is necessary to continue to do this and sort of put down in writing all those things which might bring you down as well as lift you up and work on them. It's a very important thing. It's like a confession to yourself, in a sense, before God. So this idea of keeping a spiritual journal was one thing that St. John of Kronstein highly recommended, and many people I know to this day continue with that particular work. And that's why Father Herman was giving out these journals, just empty real pages for the person to start writing. They were always nicely bound. He bought leather or leatherette with a nice pen as well, so you write by hand. You don't put it into a computer. You don't scribble. This is your work. This is your pouring out before God what you are. And this is why on this particular day we always remind you of how important it is to do that in your own life. To get yourself a journal, a nice one, and to start writing in there. Don't worry, it's your private thing. You don't show that to anybody ever. So it's your private thing. You write in there anything of inspiration in your spiritual life and perhaps in your material life as well, if that's important. So Father Herman used to do these sorts of things, knowing what is in a person's heart and what they might need when he used to be giving out these presents. To some he gave icons, to others he gave books, some other he gave something else. In some situations I remember, like for example, if you went to the shop with him, say to an ice cream shop, what's it called, Bobby Robbins or something, what's it called? In America, they have all these flavours. And he treats you. He gives, one flavour, myself another one, somebody else another one. And the flavours he chooses for that person, exactly what they needed. Like he knew that I wanted, this sort of really upmarket, creamy type things, whereas, someone like Matushka just wanted sprinkles of animals on it or something like that, candy. And he knew this even before anyone told him. That was the prophetic gifts that he had in that respect, which only goes to show how he was in tune with that. Now, the epistle that was read today had some other very important points. St. Paul is writing about his spiritual gifts, and particularly he mentions that he was raised to the third heaven. He doesn't give his name, he says, hey, I knew a man that did this, being himself actually. And he couldn't comprehend whether he was in the body, out of the body, he couldn't comprehend what was said there or anything, but he knew that it was great. However, having been given these great, like, inspirations, miraculous things, he also says that the Christ has given him a thorn in the side. In other words, he's got something painful about his body, which buffets him and stops him from getting too proud on account of all these spiritual gifts that he has. Now, this is also very important to us because many of us seek to have something special in our life, something that we know is from God. But how many of us are also prepared to take the buffeting consequences of that? You know, how many? Because it can be painful. The more gifts you get, the more you often have to suffer. We see this also amongst the saints. All the ones that we have known that were miracle workers and whatever suffered greatly, you know, from ailments of various types, some to such an extent they couldn't even get out of bed on days. But they were miracle workers. So there's these two aspects. One, that God gives these gifts, but to protect it from being lost by our own pride, he sends us these difficulties. And just as we read in today's Gospel of St. Luke, the last sentence is, after they hear the word with a noble and good heart, held fast and bore fruit in patience. In patience. So whatever difficulties are set to you, as well as the good things, bear them in patience and don't consider them as punishments or anything like that, because they're there to protect the gifts that have been given to you, whatever you've been given. Because if you don't have that, it's extremely easy to wipe out anything good just by one prideful incident in your life. And then you have to start all over again, where you don't notice it and only go deeper and deeper into those realms. So that's the story of St. John of Crumpton. I recommend that you do get his book. It's available freely in English. When I say freely, it's available in many shops online. And you could read it. There's little entries each day or each week or whatever he did, which are easy to read. You don't have to sit down and read the whole thing. Just read a page or two every now and then, and you will get a lot of spiritual benefit from that. Because he writes for simple, you know, in a simple form, not big theology or anything like that. Simple thoughts, whatever comes to his heart, whether it comes to his mind, that's important, or he thinks is important, he writes down, being an example for us of the way we should do it. I think that's all we need to say today. So please, if you haven't already have access to that book, get it. My Life in Christ by St. John of Crumpton. You can see John of Crumpton's icon is down there, and he's commemorated on Monday. The other thing is that the initiation of the catechumens is now being put off till next Saturday. At about 3. So we'll need some help to set things up. That's a very important day in our mission, because it's a dedication to the Mother of God, Joy of all who sorrow, which is the main icon of the Mother of God, bound up with platina and St. John Maximovich's church that he built in San Francisco. It's a very important thing. And all sorts of things happen to us on that particular day. So it'd be a very good choice if everything will be ready for that. God bless you all, preserve and protect you in these difficult times. Amen.